Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I wanted to talk about Wicked Implement, the brand new exotic scout rifle that just dropped in Destiny 2, go over where this thing fits in the sandbox, how to make it shine, as well as the general thought around new exotics that are dropping in Destiny 2, and why some of them may seem underwhelming even though they are still pretty solid. So jumping right into it, this is a 180 stasis scout rifle with a couple interesting traits. First off, we've got creeping attrition. Rapidly landing precision hits causes targets to become slowed. This is especially effective against overload champions and tankier enemies that you want to slow, so it can be very, very useful. Then we've also got the second trait, Tithing Harvest. Precision final blows with creeping attrition is active. Create a stasis shard that returns to you. Collecting stasis shards refills the magazine. Note that collecting those stasis shards does not have to be specifically from the Wicked Implement, but it does help. So if you are doing a stasis shard build, this can be very, very nice. Now, a lot of people are saying that Cryosthesia or the sidearm is going to be a bit better, and there's other options, but I do think there are places that this shines, especially when you have something like endgame content Grandmasters, where you're going to be playing more at a distance. I've actually paired it with the Cadmus Ridge Landscape and my stasis build to work out really, really nicely. However, you can also run this with a non-stasis build if you would like, in order to slow enemies on top of running like a void build or something like that, to take advantage of being able to slow enemies when otherwise you wouldn't be able to. So people talk about Headstone being better, and Headstone is actually a pretty good perk on a lot of the legendary weapons. However, it requires you to get a kill, and when you're taking on Grandmaster Nightfalls or Master Raids or anything like that, getting those kills rapidly is a little bit harder, and that's where something like Wicked Implement is going to be just that much better. Now, it is a 180, so it's not going to be as good as some other options, but I think it actually is pretty solid with the slow, and especially if you're able to play back a little bit, you can really slow enemies pretty consistently, create those shards, and I was also creating a ton of the diamond lances as well. So with the right build, this thing can actually be a lot of fun, even if it's going to require you to play a certain playstyle to maximize how good it is. But I think that's just how scout rifles are in general, and that's why they don't really see a ton of run in PvE, especially as exotics. They just don't feel powerful enough for a lot of people. And so while you can make a build that is going to allow Wicked Implement to shine, it's just never going to feel as strong as something that can just do a bit more burst damage, that is going to take down enemies more quickly. And so that's why I think this thing is going to be looked at as a bit underwhelming by a lot of folks, especially as an exotic. But that leads to me to the next point that I want to make, and that is that exotics in general are in a tough spot right now, because unless they do something that is just significantly better than the other options we have in our vault, especially now that we have crafting for legendary items, so you can almost guarantee you're going to get a god roll version of that weapon. It means the margin for error with your exotics is really, really tight. They're either going to be so powerful that you have to use them, and they're so good that you want to use them all over the place. For example, Divinity is almost required for the quest to get Wicked Implement because it is that useful against that Tormentor boss. However, it is a bit unfortunate because with so many options at our disposal in Destiny 2, whether they are exotic or legendary, some of these guns that are useful but not instantly insane are going to feel underwhelming, and that's a problem that I'm looking forward and seeing is going to just be happening more and more often. So when we're going through our list of exotics that we use, there are so many, even ones that have been recently buffed, that still don't get any love in the sandbox by the player base because of how many different options, how many different really strong weapons that we have in the game that are just going to outshine anything else that they put out, unless they do some nerfs, and then obviously everyone gets upset that they do nerf things as well. So that's one of the problems that I think Destiny faces right now, and I don't know exactly how they solve that, because while I do enjoy the new weapons that they put out, the power creep potential is kind of insane, and it's hard to keep coming up with brand new ideas that are going to be really useful, really fun, and also really valuable in the sandbox. Most weapons in the game are going to have one of those three, but not all of them. So we've seen it time and time again. Malfeasance got buffed this season, and it's solid, but it's still not anything that's going to be meta changing, and so people just don't use it. The best example is Salvation's Grip. That weapon is actually pretty solid now because of the bad rap it got initially, and because people are still sleeping on it or there are better options. It's just one that not a lot of folks are actually going to be using. So it's just unfortunate where kind of the game lies with exotics and even legendaries. The difference between a legendary I have in my vault that's already crafted, that's already level 20, that's already really solid, versus a new weapon with a new perk that I can chase and grind for and maybe get a god roll on over the course of time is so slim that I don't really feel the need to chase those. And I think that's really where Wicked Implement falls, right? It's a solid weapon. It's pretty good overall, but because it's an exotic that doesn't stand out in any way above what we already have in the sandbox, it doesn't have anything that gives you that wow factor. It's just not going to be one that a lot of people are going to use. And I've seen that a lot. Like this season, Centrifuge is getting a lot of run. I think that'll change next season after some of these seasonal artifact perks go away. Same thing, we've seen it with other options as well that have come out recently. Quicksilver Storm is still very good, but it's not going to get as much use when Strand is not one of the dominant subclasses and you don't have Strand artifact perks going on. So it's going to slip down the totem pole, whereas you have others like you have an Arbalist or something like that that are always going to get run, always going to be valuable. Two-Tail Fox now that is very good. Galahorn. There are certain weapons that are always going to be looked at as exotics that people should be running and need to be running, but there's just other options that are just never going to live up to that potential. And I just hope that more become viable going forward. I just don't know how they get around the lack of sunsetting in the game or the lack of a power cap when we have so many viable options without immense power creep. So we'll see how they go with that going forward, but I am very curious about that. I'd love for more unique exotics like Conditional Finality and Winterbite, for example, but as we've seen, those can either ship really, really strong and be insanely powerful and lead to a lot of FOMO from the player base, or other instances that we've seen be underwhelming, so nobody wants to chase them. So the conundrum that Bungie has is whether or not it's going to be worth it to drop these exotics that are really, really fun, really, really powerful, and also going to be ones that are going to be usable in a variety of situations with different builds, versus some of the exotics that I think are more specific and allow you to make a really good build that is one specific build, but maybe not as versatile as others. And it is an interesting situation that Bungie finds themselves in. And I'd be curious how you guys would solve that as well. So let me know in the comments if you have a fix for that, if you would just make every weapon, every exotic just insanely broken, or whatever the case may be. Let me know what your feedback would be down in the comments. My name is JoPa. I'd also love to hear from you whether you think Wicked Implement is good or not. Will you be using it? Will you be going to chase it if you haven't already? I posted my run yesterday of me getting Wicked Implement, so you can definitely check that out if you need an idea on how to obtain it. I hope you have a good one. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm going to continue posting Destiny 2 content, even though we're in kind of a lull for a lot of people. I don't care. I'm still enjoying the game. Like the video, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Once again, my name is JoPa. I hope you have a good one. I'll catch you all later.